intention. So a person walks, and sometimes you will find this, that sometimes you're in such a rush to pray. Maybe not when you come to the masjid, but let's say for some reason you have to pray in your dorm room, or you have to pray in your office, right? So a person gets up and prays what I call the quick two. And you get up and pray the quick two or pray the quick four. What happens is that you're doing it so quickly that you lose that intention, you lose that awareness. And sometimes a person gets so lost that literally sometimes when they pray they forget, was this Asr or Maghrib? Then they get confused, should I be praying 4 or 3? Or they forget that am I in the second rakat or am I in the third rakat? Or they forget, did I already just recite the surah, or did I just recite Fatiha? They don't know what to do, right? Or they're in the second sajda and they forget, am I in the third rakat or second rakat? Should I get all the way up or should I sit? Right? So that's one of the barakat of intention. That if you can make yourself aware at the beginning of ibadah, know that niyat only takes place at the ibtida. After that's the amal itself. Intention only takes place at the beginning. After that's the action itself that you perform. So if you can spend just 10 seconds, literally 10-15 seconds at the beginning of prayer and make yourself aware and focused on what you're doing, inshallah ta'ala, that awareness then will carry throughout the prayer. So the way we shoot ourselves in the foot is that we begin our salah in a state of ghafla. We just go like this real quick. Now when you begin it in a state of ghaflat, in a state of heedlessness, then you're bound to forget something, skip something, get confused, and you think, what type of prayer is that, right? I mean, even rationally speaking, that's an extremely shameful prayer to offer, right? Would you go to somebody and start speaking to them and say, like in an interview, did I just tell you where I went to school, or did I not tell you that, right? You'd look like a fool. You would never get the job, right? You say, excuse me, sir, can you tell me which of my prior jobs was I just talking to you about, right? That would be nonsensical, right? And imagine that we do that in the most important time we ever use our tongue on the day is when we converse with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is the most ahem use of our tongue. Otherwise we're using our tongue just for illicit things, and maybe unfortunately some of us might use our tongue for disliked things or prohibited things. But this is the most exalted use of the tongue. And it's a mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He has allowed us to take His name even with our tongue. Who are we that we can take His name? Right? His name, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika wa tabaraka ismuka. Tabaraka ismuka is full of barakah is your name. But Allah ta'ala has enabled us to take that name on our tongue. And therefore we should do so with awareness. So whatever amal it is in the deen, whatever action we do, the trick to being aware in that action, and people say, I pray and I don't feel anything. I read Qur'an and I'm not aware of what I'm doing, right? My mind is wandering. I'm not talking you understand the meaning. You can read the Qur'an with not understanding Arabic, but at least being aware that I'm a qari of the kalam of Allah and Allah is listening to me. That's what we don't have. The problem is not the Arabic tarjuma. The problem is we're reading the Qur'an and our mind is on our studies, or our mind is on what we're going to eat. Our mind is wandering. So that's a lack of awareness. So the way we center that awareness is niyyah. This is the power of intention. And it's such an incredible thing, it takes a few seconds. Right? So anytime we do any amal saleh, we should never try to be intentionless. Think that, why should I be empty of intention? I'm going to spend 10-15 seconds and become focused. Become aware of what it is that I'm doing and who it is that I'm doing it for and who it is that I'm speaking to, or whose words am I reading, or whose hadith. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, kalami Rasul, is also an exalted thing. That who is that incredible messenger sallallahu who said these words for me to learn from, for me to understand, for me to implement. So our intention, so to speak, in studying these hadith and this series that we're going to do every day, inshallah aziz, is that we want to live these hadith. This was the intention of the Sahaba. When the Prophet would say something to them, they wouldn't come back and say, Rasulullah, we wrote it down. They weren't thinking of textualizing it. And they didn't come back and say, Rasulullah, humne rat liya. Dekhe hum bhi inna malam malam bin niyat. That's not why the Prophet said that. He said, I didn't tell it to you to write it down or tell it to you to write it. I told it to you to live it. I told it to you to transform you. I told it to you to make a person who thinks now and actively makes intentions before every pious action. So that's what we want to do. We want to put this hadith on our tongue, but bring it into our heart. We want to make dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never make us void of intention. Make us intentional people. You see the Japanese, the way they walk is with such purpose, with such determination. We have to become purposeful people. This is the lost heritage of the Muslims, that we have purpose in everything that we do. We don't do things purposelessly. We don't do things mindlessly. If you apply this to your life, it'll fix your studies also. the deen trains a person in such a way that they get such skills, they get such discipline, they get such human power, that they are not so successful in the akhirah, they have to become successful in this dunya, right? And the last possibility, right, is bad intention. So we covered good intention, then we just covered lack of intention, and obviously to have a bad intention doing something is awful. And that, just like a good intention multiplies a good action, a bad intention multiplies a bad action. And you do something wrong. Let's say you lie. Okay, one way is that you lie because you slipped of the tongue. One way is that you lie because you're trying to cover up something. Another way is that you lie intentionally, deliberately to hurt someone, to deprive someone of something, right? That intention is even more, right, egregious or even more offensive in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's eyes. And the reason we have to watch over this is that many of us sometimes have bad intentions that don't lead to action. Either Allah Ta'ala saves us from acting on that bad intention, or we were unable to act on that bad intention. Right? And the most famous of this for the young man is when he misdirects his gaze. When we cast a lustful glance, we're actually making a bad intention. Now, 99% of the time, due to inability, we're not able to fulfill that intention. Right? Or you can think that Allah Ta'ala has put me in a state of hifaza. Right? But when you look at that, then that means, right, and actually the early muhaddithin, right, some of the most famous muhaddithin said that this was the most heaviest hadith on their heart. Because they said, Ya Allah, now not only do we have to watch over our actions, but we have to watch over our intentions also. Allahu Akbar. That we have to be watchful over our thoughts, over our emotions, over our inclinations, over our desires. They felt that this was the weightiest hadith. Allahu Akbar. Right? And that's because they understood what this hadith was calling them to do. Right? And they were exactly right. That it's this level of watchfulness that a mu'min should have over himself. Right? So one thing is I never do sin. One thing is I never fantasize about sin. One thing is I never daydream about. That's a type of intention. Right? That's the type of it that, oh, if only it was permissible, I would do it. Or if only nobody knew, I would do it. Or if only she said yes, right, I would do it. This fantasizing, right? And this is really the biggest sort of impact the media has made on the young person's mind, right? Of course, unfortunately, with some people, it even leads us to incorrect action. But this level, right, what we call in Urdu, gandhi soch, gandhi fikr, right? That if somebody was to open up, and that's what, one of the early Sufis said, that the definition of a true Sufi is somebody that if you open up all his thoughts and open up all his emotions, you would find him to be as true. No dorangi, no two-facedness. You can put what he's thinking right there on the platter in front of everyone to see, and it's as pure as his zahir. So purifying our intention is actually purifying our batin. When you have a pure intention in your heart, then your heart is saved, right, from falling into all types of diseases. And then your heart is opened up to the love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to the remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to, the azmat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to always thinking about His exaltedness and His majesty. How can we do that, right? Now the last thing is the tips on all three. How to make a good intention. The doors to making a good intention are open to you. I'll give an example that when you sleep, one thing is the sunnah du'as, before and after a righteous action. A second is an intention you can make. So before you sleep, you can make this intention that, Ya Allah, I'm sleeping for this reason. It's not purposeless. It's not out of adat or out of habit. I'm going to make my sleep purposeful. I'm sleeping for this reason that Allah, that I get rest from the sleep, and therefore when I raise fresh in your ibadah. That's the only reason I'm sleeping. Because I need to recharge myself to worship you. I need to recharge myself to do things that are pleasing to you. The same way you put a phone on the charger. You don't do it purposely. You do it because you plan to use it. That would be intention. It's a very mundane act, sleep. But if you make this intention, sleep becomes ibadah. You just connected sleep to your Lord. In essence, that's what intention is. To make a good intention for a neutral act. Is there any way that I can spin this, that it can connect me to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Is there any way that I can, in addition to the fact that I'm studying economics because I'm a student, right? Fine. Or because I like that, it's my desired major, fine. Is there any way I can also add a multiple intention to the act of studying economics that it links me to my Lord? Maybe I can say, Allah, this will please my parents, I'm doing that for your sake. Maybe I can use this knowledge of economics to do khidmat of humanity, to alleviate poverty. I can do that for your sake, right? So connect any action you have in any way possible, even the slightest way possible to Allah, is to make a good intention. The way you save yourself from bad intentions, right, is by being watchful on yourself, watching your mind, watching your heart. And if you ever feel a bad thought or a bad desire or a bad emotion or a bad inclination or a bad intention come to you, the first thing you should recite is La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, that there is no might or power save Allah to save me from this. Or you can recite the ta'awwaz, a'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. And what you should do immediately is you should make dhikr. You should think about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you think about Allah and you think about that He's watching me, that He's aware of me, that He's with me, that He knows the innermost secret of my breast, He knows what I'm feeling, He knows what I'm thinking, then you will feel haya. Then you will feel shame, and inshallah ta'ala the bad intention will go away. So today we finished the first hadith. Actions are by intentions. May Allah ta'ala enable all of us to become people of amal salih, and may He enable us, all of us, to people to rectify intention. Wa akhir da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. I will make a short group dua. We have about 9 minutes left, so we'll do a few minutes of group dua for people who want to sit, and then we can go sit there and make our own individual dua before the azan is called. Subhana rabbil a'la Allahumma salli ala sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ali sayyidina Muhammad wa barak wa sallam. Ya Allah, Ya Rabbi Kareem, Ya Allah, we're about to finish one action for your sake, which is fasting in the month of Ramadan. Ya Allah, we intended this fast, and we intend each and every fast in this month of Ramadan only and only for your sake, only and only for your pleasure. Ya Allah, we ask you to accept this humble fast from our perspective, no matter how weak it may have been, no matter how mindless we may have offered it. Ya Allah, we ask you to accept this fasting, because surely we fasted for you, and surely you are the acceptor of our ibadat. Ya Allah, we ask you to improve our intention, to improve our awareness, to improve our focus in our ibadat, to give us the ability to increase in the quantity of our amal saleh, to increase in the quality of our amal saleh. Ya Rabbi Kareem, the truth is that we wish that each and every moment of our life we should spend it wakefully, spend it purposefully. Ya Allah, we ask you to endow us with your dhikr, enable us to remember you each and every second of our day and each and every second of our night. Ya Allah, let there be no thought that comes to us except that we think of you along with it. Let there be no feeling that comes in our heart except that we feel you with it. Let there be no statement that we say with our tongue except that we think of you prior to speaking. Ya Rabbi Kareem, we wish to bring you back into our life. We wish to live an Allah-filled life. Ya Allah, we ask you to accept our salawat. We ask you to accept our fasting. We ask you to accept our du'at in this month of Ramadan. Ya Allah, we ask you to make this month of Ramadan a month of change and improvement. Change and improvement that lasts and lasts and enables us to earn your pleasure. We ask you to forgive us for all of our sins. Allahumma innaka afuun qareeb tuhibbul afwa fa'fu anna. Ya Allah, you are forgiving, you are merciful, you are kind, you love to forgive. Forgiving and merciful befits you. Ya Allah, we ask you to forgive us for all of our sins. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم وصلى الله تعالى على حبيب سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.